Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Matthew Moore in Istanbul. Well, it's been another tough day for a number of Eurozone economies. The IMF is warning that Italy faces 2 decades of slow economic growth. Meanwhile, Spain and Portugal are in trouble too. Eurozone finance ministers have officially decided to begin sanction procedures on both of them for breaching EU spending rules. Now, Spain and Portugal have 10 days to put their case for leniency. Now, according to Eurozone rules agreed in 1998, a country's budget deficit should not exceed 3% of its GDP. But the rule has never been enforced before. In 2015, Spain reported a deficit of over 5% of its GDP, while Portugal stood at 4.4%. Well, this means that they could face a fine of up to 0.2% of GDP, quite a large fine, and they would be the first Eurozone members to face such a punishment. So how is all this going down in Spain? Let's find out from Al Goodman, who joins us from Madrid. Al, does it annoy the Spanish when they find out they're going to be punished when other countries, notably Germany and France, who of course drive the Eurozone, have escaped punishment for breaching the rules before?
Well, they may take it in stride, Matthew, but clearly they're going to try to argue for leniency. Now, the first part of this bad news, as you mentioned, was expected with the finance ministers from the countries that use the euro as a currency certifying that Spain and Portugal had exceeded their budget deficits for the past 2 years. But the second part of the bad news is a potential. That's the negotiation phase. Now, what is the dollar amount on those fines? It could be worth $2 billion in a fine to Spain, about $400 million in a fine to Portugal. Huge money for two countries that are recovering still from their economic crises. And so they're going to be arguing for leniency. Now, one idea that's being floated here is that the EU may decide not to impose a very tough financial sanction right now, but instead dangle out and say that new EU money, structural funds, may not be coming the way towards Spain. So there's a lot of negotiations to do, but it's going to happen here in the coming days. Matthew?
Okay, but isn't Spain making progress with bringing down its budget deficit? Isn't that the case it would make?
That's the case they would make, and what the finance minister, the economy minister has been saying is, look, Spain is one of the fastest growing economies in the EU. It's growing faster than Portugal. Both of the countries have some unemployment problems, especially Spain, and especially youth unemployment. One of the latest proposals that we just heard here in the last hours is that they may impose some new taxes on companies that could raise something like $6 billion. There's a whole series of measures. And remember, there isn't even a government in this country, hasn't been all year because of 2 inconclusive elections. They're still trying to figure out a way to get a government among the 4 key parties. And in Portugal, there's a leftist alliance that's also got its own pressures. So the EU, with the Brexit vote, the United Kingdom's vote to leave the European Union hanging over everyone, the real question for Brussels is how much to squeeze, how much to push on the countries that are still in right now.
Okay,
Matthew?
Al Goodman in Madrid, thank you very much for that.